The great modern saint Maximilian Kolbe had many young people in formation. They would enter, it would seem, by the 100 in the Franciscan ambit in which he was engaged. And he knew how to form his students with clear messages. And he would sum up the spiritual life in one simple formula, which echoes that of the Lord himself in this gospel. He, in Polish, would put it this way on the blackboard. In English it would correspond to S, sanctity, exists when small w, that's our will, equals, and he insisted equals, with no exception, big W, the divine will. All is in that formula. Let's look at it in some detail. If in our worship we prefer to invent some glorious, spectacular way of doing something, inventing something that no one hitherto has ever thought of, we may do something spectacular and even earn a round of applause. But if we're outside the parameters of what is laid down in the Missal, which is loud and clear, easy to read, then we're outside the parameters of the divine will. So what does that say about that moment of worship? Is there worship going on? Or is it some subtle form of self-worship, using the church as a stage, a podium? There's a lot more of that going on than we would like to admit. It actually also applies to some lay people. Let's be specific. Those same instructions in the Missal indicate how things should be done also by lay people involved in anything to do with the sacred. How many lay people engaged in different things in the sacred ambit have ever even read the general instruction in the Missal? How many have in any way been made aware, or wanted to be made aware, of the conditions laid down by church authority for doing certain things? There is massive disobedience in the sanctuaries of our land with regard to, yes, the divine will in the sacred ambit of the service of the divine. It's displeasing to God, worshipped. It's displeasing to the angelic court, who see everything. In the Desert Fathers, the story is told of one of the monks who had a good singing voice, and he would use it to the full, with great gusto. One of the other monks was allowed to see something at that point during the worship. He was allowed to see at the back of the monastic church a black angel grinning and beating time. Who was being worshipped? But there are other things too, linked very closely with the sacred ambit of worship itself. The day on which we should do especially and supremely that, the day that the Lord has wanted for his own. It is a question of culture. It varies from land to land. But also it is a change that we have seen even within the Catholic sphere has actually become now normalized by the fact that quite a few Catholics do not even go to church on a Sunday because they have done their duty already before midnight on Saturday. Is God actually there being worshipped on his day when they could actually go to church? Benedict XVI put it this way, in one calm reaction, which was the kind of language that he had always. The permission to satisfy the obligation on Saturday was never meant so as to have a day without God. And that is what our Sunday has become. Add to that the ease with which now one can plan things, even in Catholic societies, to happen at the heart of the Sunday, I think you know what I mean, has made it such that the shift of attention has come from the sacred host to the likes of a round ball. The amount of energy that goes into a round ball compared with the energy going into adoration of the round host is rather startling. A lot of time and energy is involved in getting young people and also now grown people to certain places by certain deadlines on the day of the Lord, means that in practice the essence of the attention is going in that direction. In practice also that means that people have not once a week a long moment of listening. Sport can be recreative, but it can also be very draining, even stressing. It can be yet another hyped up moment of much energy expended. So 7 days a week are in that hyped up tone. Deadline, deadline, noise, noise, people, people, words, words, words. And often the words in the ambit of especially male sports is vulgar and blasphemous on the day of the Lord. I think also you men know what I mean. When men get together, it's usually something fairly similar to the army mess, on the Lord's Day included. Compare that with what in some Christian cultures the Day of the Lord still means. Many brethren across the world will want to go not once but more than once on the Day of the Lord, and also find time to be with Jesus in the monstrance. Will they go away refreshed? I think they will. Will they go away to the rush of the other days with a clearer vision? I think they will. Those who have chosen to have the obligation acquitted before the Sunday begins, I am not so sure. Last night, a dear friend died of cancer, and I think I was the last to receive his confession and give him the apostolic indulgence at the moment of death, in articulo mortis as it's put, because very soon afterwards he went into a coma. But after the confession, we were holding hands and he was just saying, "Ask Jesus to come quickly." When the body is in so much pain, it's caving in and it just wants to switch off. And that meant for him Jesus coming. But then, holding my friend's hand and in that lucidity which he still had until the end, with a little sense of humour still there, twinkle in the eye, many things seemed different. There one sees what is of importance and what is of less importance. When one only has a few moments of time left, the whole of time is seen for what it is, with great clarity, balance, and order. So, I would like to propose this to you. Be fully aware that the quality of your time on earth depends on this element of order. Order. If we are out of control, there is no order. And the order of the one who gave us time is ordered. From the beginning of creation, he put rhythm in time. The rest of God he meant also to share with us. Shabbat means rest. Sabbath is rest. It's the Christian Sabbath now on a Sunday, day of glory. But the order which the Jews cared for is still our heritage. Now let's be concrete. This applies also to new threats which weren't there before. Probably most of you here, I would say probably everyone here, is linked to the cybersphere. That is something which by now has changed profoundly the activity of the soul. Why? Because it's continuously being solicited to go out of itself. It doesn't realize it, but it's psychologically addicted to being outside itself. The Lord did not mean that to happen. I would propose, therefore, to you a concrete Shabbat. I mean time off regularly in your existence on earth on the day of the Lord, that you will have 1 day out of 7 not like the others, not available all the time to all that might want to come to you through that machine in your pocket which is controlling the whole of your being. That you will learn again how to open, yes, a book, a physical book, because in that is peace, not the same as a screen. And in that you are in full control, and the Lord, who loves peace, can whisper words which he can't whisper in highly compressed messages sent through screens. It's too intense, and our brain was not made for it. So I would say that the will of the Lord in this respect of our correctness of worship goes far beyond the parameters of just fulfilling the obligation. If we're serious about Jesus, we're serious about a love affair, and lovers want quality time. They don't brush each other off. And by the way, lovers too are up against it. Young wives are finding that the gadget is more important than she is after the first year of marriage. This gadget comes to bed with them, you know. It's threatening the heart of marriages and communications at a profoundly deep level. People can't interact peacefully and dare to look each other in the eyes as they could before these inventions came. It's the same with Jesus exactly. Some people take their mobile phone even into adoration and haven't got the willpower just to switch it off completely. I mean completely. Because the beep, even on silence, distracts us completely. I just conclude. If the Lord is Lord, he is Lord of time. He is called the Alpha and the Omega. And as we come into his place of worship, he would ask us humbly from his throne, the tabernacle, to give total attention to him and to his rights as High King. This means ceasing to be noisy, ceasing to be thinking our thoughts in such a way that they exclude his, ceasing to be worrying about things and therefore playing God. Just being there for him to minister to us, and that means a certain quantity also of time. We're handicapped in Ireland by this low tolerance level. Priests dare not go after 5, 6 or at the most 7 or 8 minutes, otherwise they pick up the vibes. He's going on too long. Is that going to be nourishment for the soul when they're spending hours and hours listening to the world on the cybersphere? Will 5 minutes nourish a soul for a week? Order, order, order.